Hello, everyone. This is your host, Mary Hasbert Fernandez from Leadership Legacies and Legends Unleash. And it is one of the companies, it belongs to Women of Health and Influence. We created this as a platform for sharing, learning, empowering, and educating. So tonight's lesson, or today's lesson, depending on where you are in the world, is 6 timeless leadership lessons from the Bible. I'm so happy to share this because there's so many of us in leadership and developing our leadership. And this is one of the core foundations and resources that I use to build my classes, my mentoring, and my coaching around. I am Mary Hazard Fernandez, business and personal development strategist, executive coach, and podcaster. It's important that if you're stuck, stopped, or stalled, that you find a way to get action behind your desires and your goals. You don't need to have the full fancy office. As you've seen, the world has changed. And many people are working from their homes or from just around the world. Their offices, wherever they are, the camera and their supplies to either go by sound, audio only, or by video, which we can do with YouTube. So I want you to know that it is important to understand that when things happen, we have to be prepared. Sometimes things happen and we call it blindsided, but as a leader, we have acquired a BBA ability, and that's that bounce back ability. And that is so important because when you're the leader, you wear all the hats. It's been very evident in recent days and years that there are a lot of things happening that are far beyond our imagination. And we need an emergency or a disaster plan of action. Business development, leadership development, personal development are worthy goals, are worthy avenues to follow. Because when we get down to it, we want to stay grounded, empowered, functional, and effective in what we do, be it leading your family, leading a business, leading an organization or team. So I want you to follow me. If you find value in this over on LinkedIn, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's grow together this brand new year. Another thing is you'll be able to get a free downloadable copy of this presentation. So let's get started. First of all, what makes a great leader? You want to know that in the Bible, not only is the Bible a sacred book for Christians, but it also serves as a great resource of wisdom. For those that are listening over on your favorite Apple, Spotify sites, I have a full presentation up here where you can get this free downloadable copy. All my, and I have a link for you to do that. And if you don't see it, always reach out to me at support@wohi.mary.com. And I'll make sure I repeat that because some are seeing visual and some are seeing hearing only sound. Throughout its pages of the Bible, you'll see examples of true leadership. I personally use it as my foundational resource for not only personal growth, but spiritual guidance. And not all my clients, I'm not demanding that you be a Christian, but we do not have to wonder where is Mary getting her resources from. And if that's in alignment with you as a fan or follower, we can possibly work together. Number one lesson, lead with humility. Throughout the Bible, we see the importance of humility. If you are humble as a leader, God will show you favor. On the other hand, if you are a proud leader, God will oppose you. So what is humility? Humility is having a proper view of yourself in light of who God is. It recognizes that you are not the most important person, but rather that God is the ultimate authority. Humility also involves our relationships with others. It involves putting others first and serving them. Why is humility so important for leaders? Humility is crucial for leaders because it allows them to lead with a servant's heart. Someone gave me a series of books years ago called Jesus, a Servanthood Leader. And they left the area and I was never able to return them. But things happen and sometimes people gift you, but you always want to say thank you and get back to people the things that they only loaned you. So humility is crucial for leaders because it allows them to lead with a servant's heart. Now, a humble leader also fosters a healthy work environment where individuals feel valued and respected instead of feeling like they are just a means to an end for a leader's success. So that's one of the downfalls sometimes when people are working with equally talented and gifted people. When you or we find ourselves treating them or feeling like a commodity, the whole relationship seems to blow up and not work properly. A humble leader fosters healthy work environments. Furthermore, humility helps leaders to continuously lead and grow. A humble leader is open to feedback and to constructive criticism, knowing that they are not perfect, but they can always improve. Leadership, you're the head of the team. You're leading the mission. You're leading the cause. So we don't want to lose our way in performing our assignment. Jesus, the ultimate example of humility. Jesus is the ultimate example of humility. In him, we see what perfect humility looks like. First and foremost, we see his ability in becoming human and coming to earth. Jesus' humility was not just shown in his birth, but also in his actions and teachings throughout his ministry. He spent time with people that society deemed unworthy. And this is why the word is such a strong foundation, because when you run into situations, you look around and very often there is no one. So watch what you do, what you say, and how we treat people. Jesus' humility also extended to the ways he dealt with the sick. Jesus served his disciples as well. He served them food and healed them. He even went so far as to wash his disciples' feet, a task normally reserved for lowly servants. Jesus' ultimate act of humility was sacrificing himself on the cross for salvation of all mankind. Being leaders, the example of Jesus too much reminds us that we too must be humble if we want to succeed as leaders. Humble, not getting lost in our titles, not getting lost in a salary, not getting lost in a position. We are all human. And when we take on the roles of leadership, it does not make anyone less. It's just a order of positioning for getting things done, and it involves a lot of respect. So Jesus' ultimate act of humility was sacrificing himself on the cross. And I mean, that is not even imaginable in my mind, being able to do what he did for us. So being humble as leaders, the example of Jesus reminds us that we too must be humble if we want to succeed. As leaders, we must also remember that our ultimate goal is not to have authority over others, even if we do, or power to assign or direct because they're a member of an organization or a team or an employee, but rather to serve them and help them reach their full potential. Now, some understand this and some get confused about, well, wait a minute. If I have that power, I don't have to really engage the people. I don't really have to treat the people. Yes, we want to have effective leadership. So we want to lead with integrity. If you want to succeed as leaders, we must do what's right, no matter the cost. In the Bible, we see several examples of leaders doing right in the face of opposition and heavy costs. Noah built the ark. In Genesis 6, God told Noah to build a giant boat Can you imagine what Noah's neighbors must have thought of him when he started building an ark in the middle of a field? They must have laughed and mocked him, thinking he was crazy. Did he stand down? Noah knew that it always better to obey God, even if anyone around you is doing the opposite. As a result of Noah's obedience, he and his family were saved from the great flood that came. Now, Abraham, he leaves his home. God called Abraham to leave his home and go to another country. Just think about leaving your home at such an old age. It would have been incredibly difficult and uncomfortable for Abraham. Because of Abraham's willingness to trust and obey God, he became known as the father of faith. Esther stands for her people. When the lives of her people, the Jews, were in danger, Esther was called by God to risk her own life and approach the king to plead for their salvation. In the end, her courage and faithfulness led to the salvation of her people, and she was celebrated as a hero. Reading these about these leaders from the Bible, it becomes so inspiring and such powerful examples. Joseph, he maintains his integrity. When Joseph's brothers betrayed him and sold him into slavery, it would have been easy for him to become bitter, seek revenge against his brothers. Instead, he waited for God to lead them, to lead him. Joseph's obedience and trust in God ultimately led him to the position of power and influence in Egypt, where he was able to save his family and countless others from famine. There are just so many examples of great leadership roles and following your leader. Moses led through opposition. Moses' incredible opposition, he led the people out of slavery. Nevertheless, Moses persisted in his work to set them free, and eventually they were free. He trusted that God would deliver his people from bondage. And in the end, they were freed and able to enter into the promised land. Now, why do we share these details, and why do we make sure that we share the details from this executive summary? It is because many people are leaders and many people are taking on responsibility, and they sometimes exude a natural gift of leadership. But there are others who are becoming leaders and want to understand where, how, who am I to be doing this? Like in Joshua 1 1 through 9, and one of my favorite leadership scriptures, where Joshua was told, it's your time, you got to get up. Moses, my servant, is dead. And I want you to get up and do with great courage and do not fear. And do not fear. Did not I tell you, do not fear? So leadership and ownership of the responsibility takes courage. So David, he fights the giant. Despite his small size and inexperience, David chose to trust in God and face Goliath head on. Throughout his life, David continued to trust in God's plan and follow his commandments. He always returned to seeking God and doing what was right in his eyes. So being committed to doing the right thing is so important. What do you learn from all these examples? The true leaders commit to doing what is right, regardless of the circumstances. I can only tell you, with God in my heart, that's I'm so committed to do what he asks me to do and to stand in integrity and to work diligently to do the right thing. What about you? Do you compromise your values? Do you yield to pressure? It's very important to own your power. So being committed to doing the right thing. What do we all learn from this? We just got to take a stand, uncompromising stand. Being committed is doing the right thing. It requires integrity, it requires faith and perseverance. If you've ever been part of different organizations where there is no cap on discipline or behavior or integrity, sometimes you will find yourself working with people with strong lack of integrity. And then it takes so much to even see it because you can believe in people so much that you don't want to believe of what you're actually seeing. But I've learned you don't betray yourself by not acknowledging what you see in the behaviors of others that is hindering not only the performance of others, but the peace of mind and the integrity of working for a cause, of working um, with integrity. That's the best way I can put it. So trust in God and stand firm on your beliefs. What are you willing to walk away from to stand in integrity? Lesson number 3, we want to lead by example. You've heard it many, many times. We want to lead by example. That's another way to teach y'all. Leaders don't ask their followers to do something that they won't do. In fact, leaders set the example of what should be done. When leaders lead by example, they set the standard for others to follow. You want productivity? Joshua chooses to follow God. Joshua is a prime example of someone leading by example and setting the standard for others to follow. Joshua stood before the people of Israel and presented them with a choice. Would they follow God? Joshua not only declared his commitment in serving God, but he also challenged the people to make a decision and follow him as an example. All right? So he was taking his role quite seriously. So he was the conduit for the mission and the message and the purpose that he was leading. The Apostle Paul, he preserves, he perseveres. Paul never asked his followers to do something he wasn't already doing. Paul not only appreciate, he not only preached about living a life devoted to God, but he also lived it out himself. Paul's leadership was so impactful that even after his death, millions of people continue to follow in his footsteps. These strong examples of sacrifice in leadership. Jesus serves his followers. Throughout his life, Jesus consistently demonstrated love, compassion, and forgiveness to his followers. He didn't command his disciples to do one thing and then do something else. Jesus' ultimate act of leading by example was when he willingly gave up his life on the cross for our sins. Major, amazing, major. The call to lead by example. We are called to follow in the footsteps of Jesus and the Apostle Paul. We all are called to live out our faith in a way that inspires and encourages others to do the same. If you want to be a leader, you have to set the pace and provide an example that others can follow. Now, that's a mouthful, y'all. I'm going to try to stay uh, focused and on task with the prepared literature. But I tell you, you cannot beat yourself up because you've done your best and things did not work out in others' lives with all you poured in. You are only human, and people have the power to make choices, and they may choose the left or they may choose the right. They may choose right. They may choose wrong. They have the power to decide. Lead with vision. The most effective leaders are visionaries. They're able to create excitement about the vision and inspire others to join in. Without vision, the people perish. In Proverbs 29:18, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. This verse reminds us that without a clear vision, we can easily our lose our way and become directionless. Just like I was sitting here thinking, when we're teaching, you don't want to be distracted. And so I remembered to cut my phone off so that I could not be distracted nor distract you from the learning or the wisdom or the impartation. So without vision, the people perish. All right. Paul's vision for the church. Paul got Paul's goal was to see every believer grow and mature in their faith. This was a clear vision that guided his actions and decisions as leaders. Paul also had the ambition and vision to preach Christ in places where Christ had not been preached. We must have a vision that goes beyond ourselves and our immediate surroundings. Great leaders have vision. And when you're part of a team and you're working with them, you feel something and you are inspired. The importance of vision for personal growth. As a business and personal development strategist, I feel you just cannot have one without the other because we're coming from different environments where others saw us as that person who lived down the street or so and so's son or so and so's daughter. But when you take on a leadership role, you are no longer that little person down the street. You are now an executive, a leader with responsibilities, and you must act out your assignment. So the importance of vision for personal growth. Without vision, you've heard it many times, the people perish. Do you have vision of what God has called you to accomplish? Having a clear and well-defined vision is powerful. It can be an engine that keeps you moving even when you're facing difficulty. I'm telling you, it can be an engine to keep you moving when you're facing difficulty. You heard that with COVID and the separation and the stay at home, a lot of people went through traumatic life changes. A lot of people lost a lot of skills, sometimes even courage and trust. And then with all of that, there was a lot of mental challenges that were coming to the light, trauma, PTSD, uh, just so much that the mind needed to reach out for help, for professional help. I was among those people. I tell you, the trauma I experienced shook me to my core, took me off my base, and I reached up to God and cried out to God. And I made sure I showed up and asked for help. And when you go through, as my bishop used to say, going through is actually a place. Because when I was going through, I could feel the power of the Holy Spirit guiding me, holding me, helping me, healing me, restoring me, letting go of hurts, betrayals, false, friends, and all those things. It takes courage. Lead with resilience. Leaders must be resilient. They must truly be able to keep going, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable circumstances. Let me tell you, when you see the goodness of God moving in your life, you have a testimony. So, what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to bounce back from difficult or challenging situations. It's the mental and emotional toughness that allows us to keep going despite setbacks and failures. I mean, you will never be enough for some people. So do not take that personally. That is just like God breaking connections that could break you if you didn't disconnect. So when people leave your circle, let them go. Do not put yourself back in that situation. King David is a prime example of resistance in action. Where did David get his resilience? Ultimately, it came from God. David depended on God to give him the strength and the perseverance. Building resilience as a leader, first and foremost, you must learn to rely on God in all circumstances. Just as David did, we must trust in God's strength and protection. We can learn from his example and seek God's guidance and wisdom in all of our challenges. It's second point, holding fast to your vision and purpose that God has given to you can help you keep going when things get tough. Additionally, resilience is leadership in leadership also involves embracing a positive mindset and learning from each challenge that you face. At Women of Help and Influence, we work on many areas of our lives: courage, discipline, habits, structures, tools for building your business. But what good are those tools if we're not strong within ourselves? How can you be and execute what we must do with all the smart we have? We must grow as a person so we can adapt to change, to challenges, and understand when someone that is crushing your soul does not have that type of power unless you give it to them. Lesson 6: lead with courage. Courage is required if you want to lead. Without courage, you'll never accomplish anything great. Without courage, you'll never achieve your full potential. Daniel and the lion's den. Daniel prayed 3 times per day at a window that looked out over the city where many could see him. King Darius, the ruler of Babylon, made a decree that prohibited anyone from praying to any god or man for 30 days, except for him. Of course, Daniel could not abide by this command. Despite the consequences, Daniel continued to pray at his window 3 times a day. He summoned his courage and stood up for what he believed in. The result, he was thrown into a lion's den as punishment for defying Darius' decree. God shut the lion's mouth and spared Daniel. This is faith in God for Christians and those who believe in what he said, how he said it, and why he said it. I am so grateful for Jesus, for God, for the Holy Spirit. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, Jesus the Christ, so that we may have life and have that life more abundantly. So I am sharing 6 leadership principles from the Bible, the foundation of my faith. So I hope you are understanding where these topics and tips are coming from. Daniel and that lion's den. There's so many more details that are not shared here. Like people looking in, thinking they saw, so many people, and then all of a sudden, that was a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I thought I saw 3, and there's 4 in there. Okay, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Guys, that's what's so important about preparing. Your spirit leads the way. The notes are already on paper, but my mind took me right there. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like Daniel, these 3 men were Jews living in exile in Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold and commanded all his officials to bow down and worship it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were faced with a difficult decision. Would they bow down to the false idol, or would they courageously stand against it? They chose to stand firm in their faith and refuse to worship that golden image. Let's continue. Their faith in God was strong and unshaken. They were willing to face death rather than compromise their beliefs. The source of our courage, ultimately, our courage comes from God. We know that whatever we face, God is with us. Furthermore, our courage comes from knowing God's truth. When we know God's truth, we can confidently stand against the pressures of the world. We can find strength and courage in knowing that God is always with us and his truth will guide us. So, my dears, let me make a little adjustment. So, my dears, I wanted to give you my final closing thoughts. Final closing thoughts. Let me go back because I want to make sure you can see it. It's important to remember that growing in leadership happens over time. It's not like you're going to wake up one day and be suddenly courageous. No need to go through situations that require courage to develop courage. So don't feel discouraged if you're not seeing all these characteristics in your life. Instead, look for the opportunities to grow. One of our main areas of focus. And more than anything, pray that God will help you become a stronger leader. He wants you to be strong as a leader and will certainly answer your prayers if you ask Him. If you want to discuss this topic or you want to have more conversations in a group or in a cohort, just let me know. This is great for just sitting down, talking, and having a personal growth get together. But as Wu Hai, we definitely work on all areas of mentorship, leadership, coaching, and strategies. So we have a few things we're working on 2025, and I pray that if this you found value in this, please go over to my website and you can get the 2-page summary. Or if you're one of the new email subscribers, this will be the full presentation, will be free and downloadable. Have a wonderful day. This is your coach, and this is Coach Mary, business and personal development strategist. Remember, you are free to do or don't do. We are not telling you what to do, telling you what to believe. We are just sharing our thoughts, our opinions, and our modes of survival. I trust in the Lord with all my heart and soul. And I thank God my parents sent me to Sunday school so that I could find and learn for myself. God bless you and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.